When you look at the differences between Chihiro and No Face, it can be easy to see them as just surface level. But if you look a little bit deeper, you'll see that the true thing that separates them is their sense of identity.
It is possible to lose yourself in the process of change.
No, that's the point.
You end up with this monstrosity.
Within the first 10 seconds, Miyazaki is already setting up everything that you need to know for the film.
So this is why you're wrong. Welcome back, everybody, to Frame of Mind, where psychology and filmmaking meet at the intersection of storytelling. My name is Jordan. I'm a video editor.
My name's Curtis. I'm a psychotherapist.
Today, we're taking a look at everybody's favorite movie, Spirited Away.
Yeah, the only animated film from Japan to ever win an Academy Award.
And the Oscar goes to The Boy and the Heron.
Oh, good little piece of trivia there.
Yep.
I thought you were going to say the only animated piece of film from Japan that we will ever review on this channel.
Yeah, no, that's not true, and that won't be true in the future.
Chihiro. Chihiro. もうすぐだよ.
There's a concept in filmmaking about what is the first frame and what is the last frame.
Yeah,
like what is the first thing that you see and what is the last thing that you see? And that's really the opportunity for the director, filmmaker, creator to drive home what it is that they want to say. Because they're priming you, you're going to start watching the movie. This is the first thing that you're going to see. That's going to set the tone for the entire experience. And then the very last thing, on the one hand, it's like wrapping up the entire story. Yeah, but it's also the last thing that you're going to leave your audience with before they go out and do other things in the rest of the world.
But let's start with the first frame, because as you're saying that, we look at the first frame here and it's like, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yep.
We don't even have to start push play and there's already things to talk about.
So what are you catching right off the bat?
So the two elements that are in the frame right now, the card that Chihiro got from her friend.
Yes.
And the flowers. Like obviously the context is she's left the school, she's moving somewhere. And so now, you know, this is kind of the goodbye present that she got. But the two elements that really stand out, one is the nature element and how immediately the first thing we see is some natural element being in the frame. The second piece is the card, and specifically how the card is going to, throughout the film, be super important for Chihiro to remember things, specifically her name, herself, and kind of what that's symbolic of.
That's a really good point, actually. From the very first frame, we've already got your identity and its connection to nature. Do you want me to do the Japanese subtitles?
Yes, actually, because, and this is like, I know people have complained about subbed versus dubbed and, oh, the dub is so awful, I can't watch it.
Yeah.
The thing that really struck me, and it's going to be important throughout this entire thing, is the differences that are created between the original Japanese audio and the English dubbed audio, and the way that it feels like they frame things quite differently.
Yeah.
Did you notice the difference in how you felt about Chihiro's parents when you watch it in English and when you watch it in Japanese?
Yes. They felt way more nasty. I got the impression that these are children who are Chihiro's parents, and they're very irresponsible, and they're like, who are these people? Like,
yeah.
How have you raised a child for this long successfully?
Part of me is, that's why I think I prefer the original Japanese, is because I have a feeling that's kind of Miyazaki's point.
Yeah.
And I think the English like softens the parents a little bit too much. I feel like there's a point in them kind of not being nice to Chihiro. And it's not like they're being actively mean. It's more like they kind of ignore her and her needs.
Yes.
And then when they go into the kind of the spirit world and start eating the food, I think there's a big like foreshadowing that happens there of like, oh, this is the tone that we want to set so that when these people take this action, it's consistent with their character.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Especially because of how that would then relate to the way that the nature versus human society argument starts to play out. Because if it was Chihiro's parents are super nice to her, and then all of a sudden, oh no, this happens when they eat this food, it feels like nature is evil and tricks you.
That's a good point.
Versus what have they been presented as the entire way along? It's like they have been ignoring the needs of others.
Yeah.
Chihiro and probably the rest of the world, the environment, the spiritual too. And so what happens then when they eat the food, is not like some trick nature played on them, but it's actually them ignoring things they should be paying attention to. Their disconnection from nature and spiritual. That means that they stop being so reverent towards it. That's what ends up creating that problem and then manifests in that, hyper consumption pig symbolism that we see. So I would, all that to say, yes, I'd prefer the Japanese because it feels more consistent with the themes.
I agree. There's all these little references to money and consumerism and consumption.
Yeah, that's true.
The first thing that mom says is like, oh, I need to go shopping.
Yep.
And then what car are they driving? It's an Audi. And when Laura actually mentioned beforehand that she was like, when I lived in Japan, did not see a lot of Audis. That is a luxury vehicle.
It's interesting too, because I didn't catch that the first go around, but there's also a piece of like, this is the middle of nowhere. I'm going to have to go shopping in the next town. It's like, there's the consumerist piece, but then there's also, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Which is?
What do you mean nowhere? You mean it's in the middle of nature.
Yeah.
It's disconnected from human society and it's more in that natural space. And there's something that we're complaining about that with. We're uncomfortable about it.
Yeah. Oh, this is a bad thing that I'm here. As opposed to like, maybe it's a good thing that I'm here. Maybe I need to like stop and look around a little bit.
So within the first 10 seconds, Miyazaki is already setting up everything that you need to know for the film.
Yeah, and who's holding on to nature? The kid in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What is that? What does the framing of that back of the car tell you? There's stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
There's a Kit Kat bar in the top beside her.
Yep.
Her feet are up on like a box. They've got like shopping bags and they've been buying stuff. They've been consuming stuff. It's just consumption and overabundance and gluttony.
There's something funny too about like the way this is framed where like, I don't know if you caught this, but I feel like she's technically sitting. But it's in a super weird, like doesn't fit with everything else that's happening around her position.
Yeah.
Communicates a sense of things being off, of things being not quite right.
Things are out of place from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We're not oriented correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
In our mindset towards nature and what's around us.
Which is funny because I almost guarantee you that's one of those things that Miyazaki did not intend. He's like, oh, that's probably how little girls sit in the car.
Yeah.
And so if they're not happy about things, like that's what we'll do. But then there's like the inherent symbolism underneath that stuff that's super interesting that you can, again, when you let it flow, the things that show up naturally are very cool and beyond probably your scope of your planning.
Yeah. In a weird way too, it's really tough to review the cinematography and the framing of like Spirited Away, but any Studio Ghibli film.
Yeah.
Because you stop anywhere and it's like a painting. And it's like a beautifully constructed image anywhere. You press pause anywhere, and I would have that as my computer wallpaper background.
Yeah.
Like in a heartbeat.
How has this not been a, like, just Chihiro in, like, bouncing in the back of the car? How is that not a looping animation for, like,
a lo-fi hip-hop?
A lo-fi, like, chill hop.
Remix.
Exactly. Yeah. How is that not that yet? That's got to be somewhere.
I promise you, it exists.
あなたずっと握りしめてるんだもの。お家に着いたら水切りすれば大丈夫よ。
The flowers are dying. Nature is dying.
Yeah.
Because of how we are holding it.
Interesting.
Yeah. On the other hand, like we're slowly being introduced to maybe another one of the macro themes that's present, which is change and growing up. Like you're going to move throughout life.
Yep.
Time progresses forwards.
Yep.
You can't cling on to the past. You gotta grow up.
Exactly. Well, but there's an interesting contrast that Miyazaki puts in here, which I think will show. The other thing that I just caught now that I didn't before is like, did you notice what her mom's response was? Where it's like, the flowers are dying. But she was like, well, but if you give them a little bit of water, they'll perk right up. Water, like a water spirit.
Yeah.
Like Haku. And his relationship to maybe how Chihiro is going to start to perk up when she gets that connection back with nature, as represented by Haku. And like,
I want to see Hayao Miyazaki's journal. It's like, yes. And so the flowers will symbolize Chihiro's future relationship with Haku.
But I think there's something interesting about the fact that she's clung to the flowers and they're dying because these flowers are a very transient thing that will wilt away at some point. But then the card that she got, her mom hands back to her, and I think it's in the English translation, she says, hold on to it. I'm opening the window. And I think there's something very cool about that idea of like, there's a contrast of not just don't cling to things, but what do you hold on to?
Oh, that's a good point.
And what do you let go? Because that card is going to show up in the future.
Yeah, don't cling to this, cling to this.
Yeah, because the card is going to show up again, and it's going to be not just important, but critical. It's going to be something that really supports and saves her at some point. And so I think one of the things Miyazaki's doing is kind of putting forward this idea of like, what do we be a little bit less attached to? And what do we almost use to anchor our experience?
Mm-hmm.
That theme's going to show up in the future, which is, I think, super interesting.
Yeah. Oh, the music is just so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that this was Spirited Away's music, but when I heard it again, I was like, oh, this is the music. And it's just perfect.
Yeah.
あれ道を間違えたかな
Did you notice how they stopped right at that point where the paved road ends and then the dirt road begins? Kind of that transition from human society to nature. And it was marked by a torii gate. So it's that piece of like, you know, in Japanese tradition, this is the thing that is the portal or the gateway to the other world. This is where you know that you're kind of stepping from the profane to the sacred. And it was super interesting to me that the way that Miyazaki had this scripted was Chihiro's curious about the spiritual world. It's like, oh, what are these things? What are these houses?
うちみたいの何？石の祠、神様のお家よ。
But then when you pair that with the fact that she's asking that question at 10 years old already, and her mom says, oh, well, people pray to those things.
Yeah, not us.
Exactly. She hasn't been taught this. And you pair that with like the Audi and everything else that's kind of going, and you get this sense of this is currently a family that is disconnected from not just the spiritual realm, but I think one of the things that Miyazaki, when he kind of talks about this film in particular, is like the connection to tradition, where we come from, and specifically how tradition is related to the relationship with nature. As we kind of progress into our more modern world, how much are we connected or disconnected from that? That's going to have a huge impact on what kind of results and outcomes that we get.
お母さん！待って！
There's three main takeaways I think I have from this one particular scene. One is right here where Chihiro's clinging onto her mom.
Yep.
Her mom's saying, you'll make me trip, Chihiro, clinging like that.
Yep.
Sort of like, hey, you'll kill your flowers, clinging like that.
Another criticism, just like the flowers, which is interesting when her mom is wearing the same color shirt as the flowers were.
Yeah. It's a little bit interesting. There's also Chihiro's demeanor. Fearful.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Which is going to really contrast how we end the film.
Yeah.
And the theme that's introduced here, which is part of growing up is growing courage.
Yeah, and that's maybe a thing I think it's important to highlight when we talk about like big themes, humongous, not just individual symbols, but big overarching themes that lots of symbols point towards. One of those things in this film is absolutely the analogy for the process of growing up.
Yeah, and the final piece that's actually related to that, the process of growing up, is learning to let go.
Yeah, because there are things that are impermanent, like the flowers that will die, like one's parents.
Yeah.
And so there's like at some point you're going to have to start doing things on your own.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? And it is going to be interesting to go through, because in this process of this film, like Chihiro really does go from being somebody who is afraid and not an active agent in her own experience. Even the way that she was laying down in the car, literally kind of being dragged along to the next scenario.
Reluctant.
Her parents are dragging her through this whole process.
I liked my old school better.
Exactly. Just kind of like anchored to the past, dragging along, versus the wind kind of pushing her forward here. It's like picking her up and getting her to move forward on her own. And it's this kind of almost encouragement from nature of like, hey, this is what you've got to do. You've got to start taking actions of your own volition. You've got to start being more of an agent of your experience.
Yeah. One might call it the winds of change.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of me caught on to the idea of like letting go is uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and letting go is sometimes painful.
100%.
Which relates to all of the vomiting that you're going to see throughout the film.
Yep.
Like letting go. There's things that don't serve you. There's things that you need to release that are going to be not just uncomfortable, not just, I want this and I need to let go of it, but it's like you need to, for your own necessity, for your own life, like let go of this.
Absolutely. What was your first impression when they walked into this space with this music and how things were?
Yeah, there's two things that I thought. My initial thought, without any priming from the outside world, was purgatory.
Yeah.
But then I saw the word used, liminal space.
Which is interesting because the hallway is technically a liminal space too. It's this place between things. It's not a place that you stay.
Yeah.
But then you get into this big open room, and it is also, even though it's like got benches in it and places where you can sit, it is not designed to be a place to stay.
No, it's a place to wait, like purgatory.
Exactly. You kind of hang out for a little while. And there is something interesting about the way that the windows are shaped with this like stained glass where it's like opened up into the space to kind of let light in. It does feel like there's this kind of sacred element to it. But then the way that the music plays, it almost kind of feels like a little, like slightly unsettling.
Yeah, very much so.
And maybe there's an aspect of that that's actually kind of important because it's this like, it's important for people to begin to, when they enter the sacred realm, to become a little bit more mindful and aware of what is happening. And I think some of that unsettledness can actually be a really good thing of like putting yourself just on edge slightly so that you're paying more attention.
Yeah.
Like be aware that you're treading on sacred ground for something or someone. So be mindful of what's happening.
Like
for
a
you.
preparatory environment to prepare you before you enter the sacred.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And there's lots of those different pieces in lots of different religions throughout the world where it's like there's the sacred space, but then there's the place before the sacred space.
There's a piece too where it's like, why didn't they just go straight from entering the tunnel to entering the next realm right before the carnival setting? It's like that could have been the case, but Miyazaki chose to have this in-between space. Like that was a decision. Like this is extra work. These are extra frames that have to be drawn and shaped and beautifully animated. Like
This is very expensive for something that means nothing.
that's a great way to put it. I'm going to use that line in the future. It's very expensive for something that means nothing.
Exactly. And that's not to be fair, because people do in films today, like spend a lot of money on things that don't matter.
I disagree.
Well,
They spend on things that matter to them.
oh, that's a good way to put it.
Like
actually.
Michael Bay will spend a lot of money on pyrotechnics.
Right.
That is very important to him. We can argue that that's not important to us or not important in general or to the movie, but it's important to him. And that's why he spends that much money on it.
And actually, maybe that's a good way to look at it then, because if you're looking at this and saying like, oh, well, this doesn't mean anything, you think, well, they spent frames on it. They spent money on this. And they didn't just do like a passing shot. They hold in this scene for like 30 to 45 seconds. They do cutaway shots to particular elements in the room. Like the filmmaker is instructing you through what he frames in the camera to focus on things. And so if it's not important for you, it's probably valuable to step outside of your own perspective and values and start looking at, this was important enough to Miyazaki to have you focus on it. What does this mean to him? Do the work to step into, somebody's trying to communicate something to me. How do I begin to grapple with understanding what that is? And there's something cool, I think, about like, the liminal space and the train symbolism that shows up throughout. There's so many moments where we are being in between realms or in between spaces, or we're at a point where we're traveling from one place to another place. Trains themselves being something that is a journey or a process or an adventure, like lots of rich symbols that are being shown up here to kind of make you think, open up and start to be prepared for a journey to take place at this point.
Is maybe this liminal space a preparation for the sacred, but also Miyazaki preparing you to say like, get ready. We're going to go through some interesting symbolism here.
Yeah.
Prepare yourself.
Yeah.
おいしい千尋すっごくおいしいよいらない
大丈夫お父さんがついてるんだからカードも財布も持ってるし
It's probably pretty obvious at this point, not just in the film, but also in us talking about it, just in general, that overconsumption and gluttonous attitude is sort of a big theme.
Humongous.
That Miyazaki is, because when we're talking about, we've been primed for it by even all the stuff in the back of the car where Chihiro is sitting there, the mom's mindset with like, oh, I need to go shopping in the next town. The dad's mindset with like, oh, don't worry, dad's got a credit card and money. I'll pay for everything.
That fixes all of our problems.
Exactly.
That's the solution. That's the panacea to life.
Yeah. You've been primed with this theme multiple times already, but this is the first time that it's really thrown in your face and like, oh, they're like pigs, over consuming, just gorging on everything in front of them. Another thing that marks a great film is the idea that there's different levels of analysis.
Yeah.
Like you can be passively watching this film and you can capture a lot of the baseline themes that Miyazaki wants to leave you with. And at the same time, the deeper you look into it, the richer of an experience you get because you're able to pull more out of it. This idea of overconsumption, it doesn't just extend to food, to money, it extends to attitude.
Yeah.
Like even you're mentioning Yubaba's home, her top floor places, it's like, it's big, it's grandiose, it's opulent, it's way too much.
Yeah.
It's gluttonous
Yeah.
in terms of like the opulence of it.
Yeah.
Even her twin sister, Zeniba, at the end of the film, is like it's gaudy, it's tacky. Ugh, it's too much.
And then you contrast that with Zeniba's actual place, and it's like very different.
Very chill, very down to earth. Almost like it's connected with nature, being found in the heart of the swamp. I feel like more than any other scene in this movie, this scene where her parents are turned into pigs is the most like Goodwill Hunting, Sean Maguire saying, trust is the thing that's going to lead you to breakthrough.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how it's very in your face. It's very on the nose, but not with dialogue. It's visually. And I think that highlights most Studio Ghibli films, which is that you can watch this with zero dialogue, with the subtitles off, and you get it.
Yeah.
Because it's a visual storytelling.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
Overconsumption, you get that through what the characters are doing, not what they're saying. What they're saying adds to it, gives you hints, it adds to the overall message, but you can capture it with just your eyes, with just what's on the screen.
That'd be a super interesting challenge at some point, is like watch a film that you've never watched before with the sound off and no subtitles.
Yeah.
And see what you get out of watching that film.
We should do that.
We'll pick a film to do that with at some point.
口を開けてこれを早くこの世界のものを食べないとそなたは消えてしまういや食べても豚にはならない
Haku is giving her this piece of spirit food so that she doesn't disappear. I think there's one very interesting mirroring
Yes.
with how this is then going to happen with Haku. So that's like, well, he feeds her so that she doesn't die, and then she feeds him so that he doesn't die. And there's this mutuality between human beings and nature. There's another point for Chihiro specifically where it's like, once she eats the food, now she can make contact with the world that she's in. It really seems to me like one of the things about growing up that you need to start doing is start being present to where you are in order to engage the current challenges that you're facing. Because Chihiro's been, at the beginning of this film, running away from all the challenges.
Yeah.
She's not facing what's coming up next. Like in the car, she's looking up at the ceiling. Parents are looking forwards towards out of the windshield to what happens next. She is not engaged with the current challenges and facing up to them. But Haku giving her this piece of food is the first piece, like, okay, you're now materially here where these challenges are going to be, so you can kind of exist in this space. Now you have to start taking action. And so I think there's an element of, when you're growing up, part of what you need to be able to do is learn how to face things that are presently challenges and issues for you.
I think there's a lot there, especially when you talk about the mirroring. The piece that I caught with that was like, growing up is also reciprocation. It's the idea that it's the transition point from being somebody who is in need of help to being somebody who provides help.
That's a great point.
Because the whole journey that Chihiro's going through is not just growing up, gaining responsibility, but also being somebody that people can depend on.
Yep.
Which is weird to say about a literal child.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful in the symbolism, because what she says later on in the film is that, like, Haku helped me, now I want to help him.
Yeah.
行かなければ忘れないで私は千尋の味方だからね
Haku leaves her.
Yeah.
And this is the first time where she's like forced to, like, you're doing stuff on your own. I'm scared. I'm afraid. I'm curled up in a ball. But no, I have to go and make the first step on my own with nobody else around me.
But what does her first step look like?
Oh, it's very uncomfortable.
It's literal crawling, like a baby.
Your first steps
Yeah,
on your
her
own.
first steps on the steps. Oh, it's just like right on the nose.
Again, themes are present, but then every so often it's thrust in your face. Like, she's very fearful.
Yep.
She's very afraid of the world around her.
Yep.
But then, like you mentioned with Haku feeds her, then she feeds Haku, like things come around full circle.
Yeah.
Later on, she's going to cross the pipe.
Yes, absolutely. That's the mirroring scene.
And it's a way more dangerous setup.
But she is way less afraid.
She's way more courageous.
Absolutely.
It's moments like that that make me realize that it is very much the hero's journey.
Yeah.
To a T, more so than most films, where it's like the crossing of the threshold, the crossing of the bridge, the magical companion, the mentor.
Yeah.
It's like there's all these very one-for-one, very on-the-nose hero's journey plot points that it hits.
Yeah.
Despite being a film that is incredibly symbolic in its priority.
It does feel like it would be kind of insulting to call it formulaic in that way, but it's maybe more appropriate to say that it is not deviating from the fundamental story structure.
Well, is the hero's journey a story structure, or is it the encompassing of what works within a myth?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that you and I would both agree that not managing to perfectly follow the hero's journey doesn't ruin your film.
No, absolutely not.
The purpose of a hero's journey isn't something that you need to follow. It's something that explains why something works.
True.
There's a lot of movies with themes about growing up. Why? Because it's a really important piece of life.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not that your film has to be about growing up, but part of it probably is going to be about that because time moves on and that impacts all of us.
Yep. It's like, what are some of those themes that might actually be inescapable?
Yeah.
Like,
that are present whether you like it or not.
Because all stories, right, no matter whether you're talking about the Avengers facing Thanos or some, person in a romantic comedy or Chihiro going through her process of the bathhouse, like, they're all fundamentally stories about being human.
Mm-hmm.
They all are telling us about the human experience. And so there are going to be some inevitable things you can't get away from.
Yeah. Did you notice that the boiler is a pig?
Yeah, that's a theme that kept coming up, which is interesting. You see it better now where it's like clearly there's the head,
the eyes.
You got the two gauges of the eyes, the nose. And so there's an interesting thing there where it's like, I don't know how to feel about it because it feels like the bathhouse is kind of a mixed symbol where it's definitely in the spirit world, the more consumptive social element of it compared to Zeniba and like the more fundamentally natural. It feels like the bathhouse is kind of this in-between space. And so there's a part of it that feels to me like, is that boiler as a pig symbolic of like the consumerist intruding into the spiritual? Or is it more like there is an inherent and natural element of consumption that if balanced right is appropriate? Because the bathhouse is super important as a ritual space for the spirits. And when the river spirit comes in, you kind of see the value of that process and when things are working appropriately. So part of me is like, I don't know if this is so much a direct consumerism symbol, more so than it is just like maybe the natural inherentness of consumption when it is like when Kamaji's in charge, when it is appropriately monitored and managed.
Yeah. I had a bit of a different takeaway.
Okay.
There's multiple different interpretations.
This is the subjectivity of interpreting symbols.
Yeah. Nobody's wrong. Nobody's right.
Except that I'm more right.
I was literally,
you were gonna make that
I was
joke.
literally about to say, so the reason why you're wrong is, what I get from this is that all throughout Chihiro's journey through the spirit realm, there's tons of things that are wrong that have nothing to do with the intrusion of the human world.
Oh, interesting.
Like the spirit world isn't in and of itself just amazing and perfect.
Right.
Yubaba's pretty cruel.
Yeah.
Haku is stealing to try and acquire magic to get the upper hand over Zeniba and Yubaba. This goes back to this macro theme of finding the happy medium, where I feel like Miyazaki's saying that, like, look, we need to find our way back to our roots and our heritage and figure out what we need to keep from our heritage and from our traditions, because that stuff is valuable. But it's also wrong to dive in 1,000% and just stay there forever. Like, the world is going to move forward. We need to grow up. We're going to enter a new world that's different than the world that we're exiting.
Yeah.
Like, things will change. We're going to be moving forward. We need to figure out what we're needing to keep and what we need to throw away. And so I don't think it's any surprise then that there's problems with the human world, there's problems with the spirit world.
Yeah.
And all throughout the process, it's interesting how Chihiro is the one who brings balance.
So there's a component there that I think is super important. And again, maybe not super intentional by Miyazaki if he was thinking this deeply about it, but like absolutely the fact that one's identity is super grounding when it comes to the different experiences that you're in. And in order to not be twisted or manipulated by the world around you or the environment that you're in, it's super important to remember who you are, what's important to you, and where you've come from. Like, what are those core values or traits that make you you? That directs you forward, and that helps you do things differently. Like in the future, when Chihiro is going to resist all the gold that No Face is going to shove in her face to do things, she's like, no, I'm not interested. I think partially because she remembers who she is. She remembers what's important to her. She remembers her goal. I need to get my parents back. This is important. I'm trying to take care of Haku because I have like a connection with him. Those things are going to matter more to her rather than everybody else who Yubaba has taken all their names to be in control of them. Like, they all fall into whatever the dominant element of the environment is. In that case, becomes consumerism. And so I think there's a, like, yes, identity in terms of how you navigate the world as a growing up piece for sure, but then also kind of this secondary symbol as well when it comes to the consumerism versus relationship with nature of like, it does feel like once you become a number in the society of work, it becomes so easy to focus on the values and the things that environment tells you are important. Like the gold, consumerism, have the money, have all this other stuff. And you start to be driven towards those things like everybody else in the bathhouses when No Face shows up. I feel like there's a piece here where it's like, don't allow this consumptive society to rob you of whether it is the personal or whether it is the more collective social element of identity that will ground you when it comes to navigating some of these challenges.
It's weird. I agree with everything that you're saying. I got totally different things that stood out to me when I thought about the same things. So this is why you're wrong.
You had to sneak that in there. I already got you with it. Never mind.
No, there's all these different things that are changing you for the better in this world. It's like, you need to get a job. You need to take on responsibility. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to be a little more bold. You need to be a little braver. There's all these things that are going to need to change about you, but not your name. That core piece of you needs to stay the same. You need to change all of these different things about you, but not this one over here.
I really like that idea, actually, because it's like, that feels very much like it translates to the real world, where you think about, you will grow, you will evolve, you will develop, you'll become a different person. But are you really a different person?
Well,
what's that anchor point for you?
At the very end of the movie, like, Chihiro is a completely different person. Like, she is completely different. And even at the end where it's symbolized by the magical hairband that's still with her, it's like, this is the same Chihiro that we've experienced throughout this entire film. Like, it's still Chihiro, but it's not the same person.
It feels like it contrasts the idea of growth with losing yourself.
How do you change? How do you grow without losing that core piece of who you are? It is possible to lose yourself in the process of change. So what are the pieces that you hold on to? What is the important thing that you hold in a similar way to holding nature as sacred? What are the pieces about you that you hold as sacred?
And I think there's a couple of great pieces here where all the way from the very beginning, the opening scene, ironically, the thing that was making Chihiro look backwards, it's like, why didn't she want to leave her old school? Did she like the town? Did she like the building? Almost certainly not. Like, highlighted by the card from her friend, it's like, it's the relationships. Who and what matters to you? That's an important piece. So her friend mattered to her, that her parents matter to her and she's trying to get them back. And then Haku matters to her and she needs to support and help them. And like, it's those values that she holds that feel like they really help anchor her, especially when No Face presents her with all the money. And it's like, no, this doesn't mean anything to me. I have to go and do something that actually is important to me. It's more important for me to take care of and support and rescue my friend than it is to get this financial gain.
I love that piece about the values being the thing that anchors you, because I think another piece that probably was unintentional in its symbolism is this idea that all along the way, Chihiro needs to reject the 7 deadly sins.
Oh, okay.
So like when Chihiro's parents are eating all the food, she doesn't join in, that's gluttony.
Yep.
When No Face offers her all of the gold and she rejects it, that's greed.
Yep.
When she successfully cleans the river spirit and everybody's like, yay, Chihiro, and is praising her, she doesn't like soak it all in. She goes back to her room quietly and reflects on it with Lin. That's pride.
And it's not this thing where it's like, I think that Miyazaki was like, yes, this Western concept of the 7 deadly sins. I shall make my film about this.
Yeah. Miyazaki didn't like dive in and be like, I want to make sure that I include some Catholicism into my process here. But I get what you mean. Like he's talking about vices.
Yeah.
Things that mean that we kind of fall short or like problematic sets of behaviors that we can begin to encounter when these things show up in the world. And it's important for us to make sure that we're taking on this path of like, do I stay with those values that are important, or do I get sidetracked by the temptations of the things that could pull me off of that path that is important for both growing up and my relationship with nature?
Yeah, and how much of it is that when you're dealing with the realm of symbolism and metaphor, you stumble onto universal human experiences that even though maybe there was like 9 things that he was intending for instead of 7, or like maybe that wasn't even something that he was going for at all, it's still a valid interpretation because these things were hit.
Yeah.
And even if they're not like perfect illustrations, the thing isn't like the 7 deadly sins is like this concept that needs to be hit to get a check mark, to get a point, to get an A+ on your film studies review exams. Like, no, it's like the reason that these symbols exist, the reason these concepts exist is to help the symbolism have something to grab onto.
Yeah.
Like we have this label that we can then use to as like a lens to look at the imagery and symbolism that we're dealing with.
Yeah. But it's transcultural.
Yes.
The symbols are always at a deeper layer of assessment and analysis than the lenses that we use in our different social structures to identify them. And the symbol is always going to be more important and universal than whatever differences our societies have in terms of how they look at them.
お食べ
There's something that I like about that moment of she's eating, there's silence, there's no dialogue. It's like you finally have a moment to breathe, and that's when it all hits you.
Yeah.
Because up to this point, she's had to go through and push through a whole bunch of stuff and deal with an unbelievably amount of different challenges. And now she finally kind of has this moment of respite where she gets a break. It's been a totally mind-bending challenge, potentially traumatic. I would say a traumatic experience watching your parents get turned into pigs. And then, okay, now I got to work and I got to do this and I got to rush. And she hasn't really had time to process. Now there's finally a pause and a space. And she finally has a moment maybe to like feel her feelings. Because it is very easy for us to, this is something I talk to clients about all the time, is like, people are so good at distracting themselves from what they feel. And then you finally get this moment of pause where you're not doing anything else. It's like, oh, now it all has time to come up. I think it's really highlighted by Haku being like, you've had a really hard time.
Yeah.
And just, again, like this was what, 2001? So like this is well before the popularization of emotional intelligence and all this stuff. But Haku does a great job here.
Yeah.
Like he's not being super intrusive or doing too much. He's like,
Stop crying, get back to work.
Stop crying. It won't do any good. And anyway, you have a lot of work to do starting right now.
just like hand on a shoulder. You've had a hard time. It's okay. Keep eating. Like keep filling up. You need this.
Yeah.
Just like, that's a great example of just being there for somebody. If people are looking for a good example of what it means to be with somebody while they feel their feelings, like,
Yeah.
look at Haku.
Yeah.
Great example.
If anybody's seen any YouTube video about Spirited Away, they've probably heard already about the concept of Ma and about how Miyazaki uses that in his films. Are you aware of the concept?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
This is new to me.
I was so sure that you would have heard about this already. So there's a concept in Japanese that Miyazaki refers to a lot, which is called Ma. And it is, I don't remember what the actual definition is, but his definition is the space in between clapping.
Oh, okay.
So like something happens and then there's space and pause and a break.
Yeah.
It's personified in this scene where it's like things are happening, but it's very much just like we're taking a break. And it's weird how that moment to take a break simultaneously is important for us as an audience to digest the narrative, but it's also important for Chihiro as a character for that to really resonate with us too.
Yeah, I love that because it does feel like when you put it that way, that's a great articulation of that idea where it's only in that in that space where it seems like Chihiro has an opportunity to feel her feelings. And I think when people think about trying to feel their feelings, or if people are struggling to feel their feelings, one of the primary reasons that can happen is that we are not giving ourselves sufficient space.
Yeah.
Too many things are crowding in, too much is happening. And it's one of the things where I think people can often be challenged by a concept like meditation. Because think, oh, meditation is supposed to make me peaceful. And yet when I meditate, there's so many different thoughts that are showing up, so many different feelings that can come out that are uncomfortable, and I don't like it. It's like, meditation doesn't work. No, that's the point. The point is not that it makes you calm. The point is that you become calm after you feel and process through your emotions. If you're starting to feel uncomfortable or you're thinking about a lot of stuff, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
You have to interact and navigate with that stuff. You have to engage those pieces. It's not like you're just going to sit there silently and all of a sudden everything magically disappears. Yeah. And so I think there's something where it's like, for me, 100%, this is not a moment where Chihiro is showing her like weakness and her childlikeness still showing up. It's like, this is an important part of the process. Again, if I was going to put money on anything, I would guarantee you this is not something that Miyazaki planned. But I like to interpret or think about the idea of how much more difficult would it have been for Chihiro to have gone through what happens in the next pieces of the film if she hadn't had this moment to have her feelings. If she hadn't had this moment for this stuff to come up, yes, it's been hard. Okay, I feel them. It's real. I give them space. I let them be here. And now that they've flown and they've gone out like a river, what do I have room for now? What's next? Am I now prepared now that I felt how hard it is? But guess what? I've come through. I've made it. So thank you, Miyazaki, for being so welcoming to people's feelings and emotions. That's very forward thinking of you for being like making this in the early 2000s.
Yeah. And again, it's funny that you brought this up too. It seems like this thing that's out of place and maybe unnecessary on the surface, but it's an awfully expensive thing to mean nothing.
That's a great point.
That's a brilliant thing that you brought up before. I'm going to use that a lot in the future.
That'll be another.
This is very expensive for it to mean nothing.
Oh, we have got to put that on a shirt at some point.
That's our new slogan. This is very expensive to mean absolutely nothing. We found our first piece of merch.
Yeah.
But before we dive into it, guys, we want to let you know this video is brought to you by us.
Yes, us on our new Patreon that we just launched.
Basically, we wanted to create a place where our entire catalog of videos is ad-free, and it also doesn't include some of the changes that we need to make to satisfy YouTube. We have to cut out a lot of stuff. You wouldn't believe how much we have to cut out.
We are super excited to be starting a place where we can build this community to have these deeper discussions around psychology and film, not just in the comments, but in Discord and other places like that. We're also really excited for in the future, getting the chance to actually get you guys more involved in the creation process of this video. We're really stoked about that.
There's a lot more we could say about it, but we'll do that at the end of the video. But for right now, let's dive right back into Spirited Away.
There's something interesting, I think, about the fact that Chihiro lets him in. And like, is there something about it takes humanity to kind of let in this consumptive aspect of nature into these parts? Partially because when he is trying to help her, there's an aspect of like, in every instance where he's trying to help her, except for maybe the first one, it's like, it's always too much.
Yeah, it's like, I'll give you this token. Oh, I'll give you
all the tokens and then all the gold. And I want all the stuff. And so there's that like really overconsumptive nature to even the most well-intentioned stuff that No Face is doing.
Totally.
I like the idea of directly contrasting the river spirit with No Face.
Ooh.
Because Miyazaki puts them in the literal exact same situation. They both go to the exact same bath in the bathhouse.
Yes.
And they're both having everybody come in and have to be all hands on deck. Like there's so much mirroring of the elements that are happening. It's like, it's almost like it happens and then it happens again, but slightly differently.
Yeah.
And I think part of where that, alignment and mirroring happens is to draw the contrast between what happens when it's what the river spirit represents versus what No Face represents. One of the things that Miyazaki says about No Face is, I didn't make the film with the idea that No Face represents today's youth in mind. So it wasn't that. No Face is just a name and a mask. And other than that, we don't really know anything he's thinking or what he wants to do. We just named him No Face because his expression almost never changes. That's all. But I do think that there are people like him everywhere.
Yeah.
People who want to glom onto somebody, but have no sense of self.
Mm.
And so there's almost this idea where No Face is being contrasted with Chihiro in the idea of somebody who knows themselves and somebody who does not know themselves.
Yeah, totally.
And what are the different impacts going to be when they come into this space? Like Chihiro knows herself. And so she's able to have these much more balanced, responsible, not consumptive based, but value and goal based choices that she makes.
Totally.
Whereas No Face is just, he's giving to give. There's no specificity or plan to it. It's like, oh, all the stuff. So I'll just give all the stuff because more is better.
Yeah.
And I'll take all the stuff because more is better.
Yeah. Or is he giving to give or giving to receive?
Yeah, that's
like,
maybe, or giving.
Chihiro's giving me attention. Oh, if I give her more, I'll get more attention.
Giving to be attached.
Yeah.
Right?
It's beautiful that you talk about the contrast between the river spirit and No Face and Chihiro and No Face, because what I noticed is that the idea of No Face having no identity and Chihiro having an identity, or even the river spirit having a very cohesive like identity, is the central thing that really contrasts them. Because the thing that happens is, what No Face does is he's observing everything that happens in the bathhouse when they're cleaning the river spirit, and then afterwards when there's all the gold on the ground, and it's when everybody's rushing for all this gold, that's when he realizes, oh, I can give gold to people.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
He's only operating on want. There's what he wants and there's what other people want.
Yeah.
So I'll take everything that I want and I'll, in some ways, have like a twisted version of reciprocity by giving you what you seem to want. There is an interesting piece about reciprocity too, where it feels like, yes, the river spirit gives him the gold, but he also gives Chihiro something that she actually needs.
Yeah.
Which is that like healing component, or the thing that can extract whatever is wrong from a situation.
Cleansing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, actually.
It's almost like, the river cleanses.
Like when Izanagi goes into the river and so he gives her that token that supports the cleansing process of taking place.
Yeah. And it's reciprocity. You clean me, I will help you clean others around you.
Now that feels important. That feels interesting. That feels like because we've been talking about this for a long time and using a bunch of different words and statements to describe it. But to me, something about that feels super poignant. Like if we were going to boil down when Miyazaki is saying like, we should have a good relationship with nature. Well, what is the relationship with nature? And it does feel like you clean me, I clean you. You keep me clean, I keep you clean. If we do our part to keep the natural world in its natural order, if we do enough to support it, to take care of it, to be good stewards of it, to be responsible for it, there is this kind of inherent feedback where nature will then support us in what keeps us clean as human beings.
Totally.
And what does that look like? I think like if anybody goes to the top of a mountain and like sees a naturescape, there's almost like a
cleansing element to that.
Just of like the awe that you experience.
There's also literal interpretations to that as well, though. Like, are you aware of the story that inspired Miyazaki to actually like do the whole snake spirit scene?
Yeah, it was him cleaning up a river with his friends, and then all the fish came back.
Oh, the fish came back. Why is that important?
Food.
Fish.
Yes.
Food. Things like tangible things that can support us.
Yep.
So in a spiritual sense, like yes, but also
In a real physical sense.
yeah.
That's a great point.
So like it's both. It's both and. I feel like, again, multiple layers of analysis. There's the literal, there's the figurative, the symbolic.
I love that.
He doesn't have an identity. And when he eats the frog, he takes on the identity of the frog.
Very interesting.
Like he gets webbed hands. His voice is the frog.
Yeah.
This is one of those scenes where I was talking before about there's obviously something going on, but I can't quite put my finger and describe it. There's obviously this thing about when you don't have your own identity and you're trying to take on all the identities of the things around you, you end up with this like monstrosity of other people's identities.
Yeah.
And it's not your own, it's not you, and it's gross.
I actually love that because there's something that feels very psychologically mental wellness important about that. Because there are so many people who go through their lives without realizing it, kind of in that no face space of taking on other people's identity and values rather than having their own, and how much that creates distortion and twisting things up in their life. Like so many people, I think we go back to like even Chihiro's parents, like there's so many people who in their growing up and developmental years, because of the shortcomings of their parents and how their parents relate to them, end up taking on what is important and valuable to their parents rather than what is actually true to themselves.
Oh, interesting.
And that can show up in so many different ways, from like things that seem super innocent all the way to things that are extremely traumatic. And regardless of how intense it is, in all places, it kind of does that drifting away from who one's sense of self is, what your individuality is, and kind of like you forget yourself. In a weird way, you forget yourself before you even find yourself. You already get pulled off the track before anybody ever gives you that card that has your identity on it.
That's really good. People
Will then also, I think, kind of like what No Face does in this process. He gets one thing, but it isn't sufficient. And so he keeps consuming, and like keeps trying to find other people that he consumes more people. But the more stuff that he consumes, maybe he thinks it's going to like help him realign and fix it. Maybe like, well, I went this way, so maybe I'll balance it with this piece. But it never actually gets you back on track. It always just makes things spiral out of control and be worse. And I think there is like you said, with all the vomiting that takes place. Like
there's a lot of it.
There is so much of an importance to a letting go when you start to identify what is somebody else's values, what is important to somebody else, what's somebody else's identity that's kind of been put into me that isn't fitting or doesn't work. And I notice it because of how weird or how gross it feels or how it just feels off, or like I can never actually get what I want, or I can never find that satiation point where it feels like, things fit, things match. Like you have to do the uncomfortable process of starting to let go of that stuff. There's another element of No Face that I think is really important psychologically.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with any of the work from Gabor Mate?
Probably not nearly as much as you.
There's a component where one of his most famous books is called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts.
All right, weirdly fitting.
Well, and it's because he names that book because it's an addiction treatment book, or it's like his focus on working with addictions.
Yeah. It's a good name for it.
Well, and part of what it is he took that from folklore, where in Asian cultures, this idea, and it's like across like India, China, they all have these different variants of the same kind of concept, which is this hungry spirit. And there's a piece that really reminded me of it for No Face, even just in the physical depiction, because what they're depicted as is all like somewhat humanoid with arms and legs, but they've got really like slender, bony upper bodies, but like bulbous stomachs.
Yeah.
And there's a piece when No Face is going around the bathhouse. It's like after he's consumed the frog and stuff, feels like he looks very similar to that, where it's this like gigantic stomach, but everything else kind of gets lithe at the top. And then I think maybe most prominently, the mouth below his face.
Yeah.
Where it's like completely bypassing the rational, the cognitive, any part of the mind. It's like, it's just consumption for consumption's sake. It's very reminiscent of some of these addiction pieces where a lot of the time we are consuming. In addiction, it's consuming because of the pain. But a lot of the time the pain happens because of that lack or loss of identity.
Yes.
Unpleasant feelings are often coming from wounds that separate us from our sense of self. Like somebody has very deeply rejected me, or somebody has told me something that I value doesn't matter, or that I as a person am not worthy and don't matter. Like that relationship between me and other people has been severed. And in that severing, it's like, oh, well, if I'm being disconnected from this world of people around me, from these relationships, from things that are important, part of the way that we can interpret that is, oh, I don't matter. I'm not important. I'm not valuable. My identity is worthless. And so that generates this pain that we then have to soothe with these addictive processes, whatever they might be. And so I think there's something very appropriate for No Face kind of being emblematic of somebody who has no self or has been disconnected from self.
I think that actually works really well with No Face's character. Because did you catch the only words that he actually says in the film? Because there's times when he speaks when he's got the other people's voices through what he consumed.
Yeah.
But there's only one time that he ever speaks himself.
I don't think I caught that.
2 words. And he repeats them. He says, I'm lonely, I'm lonely.
お家はどこなの？お父さんやお母さんいるんでしょ？
嫌だ。嫌だ。寂しい。寂しい。
One of the ways that you can frame an addiction is not an ailment per se, but more of like an illness of disconnection. That, what is this saying? It's that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but connection.
That's great, yeah.
So the idea that he's looking for connection really does feed into this overconsumptive element where it's like he's aimed at the wrong thing. He thinks all this stuff is going to fulfill and satiate this need, when really the primary need is just the connection with somebody like Chihiro. And it's interesting because he feels like he has to offer this stuff, earn it, buy it. Like this is how connection happens. But
yeah. Like you had it. You didn't do anything.
You're right. She connected with him immediately without any exchange of anything.
Yeah.
No, like having to buy any of this process.
Which is weird, because is this then like the dark misinterpretation of reciprocity? Not like I will do this because I'm grateful, but I need to do this.
Well,
I need to get more stuff. I need to give back.
I think that's why the contrast between No Face and the River Spirit is so important, because you think about where is the placement of the gold in each of their processes.
Oh, as a byproduct.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In the River Spirit, it's a byproduct. Yeah. You do the thing, and then this is what happens as a result.
Beautiful.
But for No Face, it's here's all the gold. I've got to buy and purchase the same thing that was happening.
It's the same thing, but the order and the intention behind it.
And then you see the difference between like the way that everybody else responds is kind of funny, because when you think about kami being spirits or gods in Japanese, there's like all this worship and reverence for No Face when he's going through.
Yeah.
But is it actually for him?
No.
It's for the thing that you can get out of it. And so that's maybe where a piece of the relationship starts to fall apart. It's like, it's not doing things like they did things for the River Spirit because they wanted to help and support it. It was, what can you give me?
Yeah.
So there's like this, maybe this inherent relationship between consumption and selfishness. When is the focus just on me rather than the focus being on my relationships? Which perhaps is one of the reasons that Chihiro is able to resist the temptation for the gold, is because her focus is not on what she needs, but the relationships, and for her right now, what Haku requires from her.
I'm going to sound like a broken record. That's beautiful, and I think that's true, but I got exactly I got a different thing. I think that's true. I didn't realize this until you just said that, but the idea that they're doing all this stuff for No Face, but they're not doing it for him. They're doing it for themselves.
Yeah. And they contribute to the excess because they never would give any other spirit this much food.
Yeah. But part of me wonders, is this a critique of consumption mindset specifically? Or is this also a simultaneous critique about part of the way that people engaged with their spiritual practices in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're going to pray to our ancestors. Is it for them, or is it so that they guide me? Like, you're going to give this to me. Am I going to offer these things to you at your grave so that because out of reverence for you? Or is it because I want you to, I'm buying your favor from the spirit world?
That's a great point, actually. Like, when you look at in the Japanese context, whether it's your ancestors or whether it's like, you know, the kami in your local town, do you go and pray? Do you support them because you'll then get something out of it? Oh, it'll keep our town safe. It'll do this. Or do you do it because, like, hey, these are the kami of our village. We're in relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important that we take care of what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to have, what's that attitude
Mm-hmm.
going into it? And the attitude that you have is super important with the outcome and the results you get, even if you're doing the exact same thing. Like here, we're serving the spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's very different,
Mm-hmm.
super different. And you get really negative results when you don't have the right attitude going into things.
Totally.
Which again, feeds right back into these like almost intertwined themes of relationship with nature and growing up. What's your attitude? I think there's an element where if we can pull all these sort of themes together, there's a sense of if you know your identity and who you are, then you'll know what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know what you need, you can align your needs with your wants.
Mm-hmm.
That core anchor of your knowing yourself, where you come from, who you are, what your values are, everything else then kind of feeds off of that.
Yeah.
And lots of other people and characters in the show are very unaligned that way. Primary example being No Face, of like complete lack of identity, doesn't know who he is, therefore totally disconnected from his needs and what the feelings are of like loneliness coming up that represent what he needs. And so the wants are just kind of all over the place. And because they're all over the place, they're not guided. There is no actual end goal or target. So they just keep consuming, keep getting more. And that's where that damage comes in. And maybe there's that reference to like, if we don't stay connected to our roots as a society, our commerce will become consumptive to the point where it's not actually meeting needs and lining up with our identity. It's just consuming for the sake of consuming. And that's where we then start to destroy a relationship with nature.
When you're talking about knowing your identity and that being a key factor, I just realized that that is something that comes up over and over and over and over again for multiple characters in the film.
Yep.
No Face has no identity.
Yep.
The river spirit had a corrupted identity.
Yep.
Haku forgot his identity.
Yep.
And Chihiro is the one who remembers her identity.
And Baby Bo, Yubaba
changes identity.
Yubaba doesn't recognize his identity at his core and who he is. She just looks at the rat and is like, ew, the rat. And so, well, actually, that's the most important thing to you. But because you're not attached to it, you didn't recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe kind of, this is actually probably a good point to go back then to that point where Haku, without that corruptive spirit inside him, goes and confronts Yubaba. And she makes that kind of comment about like, you're not usually this like forward and confrontational towards me, because he's now no longer being controlled.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how Haku says to her, like, you don't recognize what you're missing or what you've lost. And immediately what does Yubaba do? She goes and looks at the gold. And the other characters around go and look at the gold too. And she's like, what are you talking about? I have what, or like, she doesn't say that, but she's looking, giving them that kind of like snide, I have exactly what I need. And then goes over and looks at Bo. And it's like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And it's funny then how once she recognizes that she's lost Bo, that's when all the gold turns to sand.
Mm-hmm.
That's when all the stuff that you thought was important becomes meaningless.
Because without the relationships around you, what use is that gold?
Exactly. You can have all the nicest stuff and consume things, but if you don't have your relationships, whether that's with other people, whether that's with nature, whether that's your relationship with yourself and grasping that anchored identity, without those things, any of those elements, objects, consumptive pieces become useless and meaningless and valueless. Super weird aside. And maybe like, I don't know if you'll even include this, but like,
we'll see.
It reminds me of last night when we were hanging out at the Super Bowl.
That won't date this recording at all.
Yeah, it's true. But somebody brought up the fact that Aubrey Plaza's husband committed suicide.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes me think about like somebody who having all the stuff. Like, you have the celebrity partner, you probably have the money, you have all this stuff, but that's a situation that says to me, like people often ask, how does somebody in that situation feel that way and kind of want to take that action?
You
It's
have
like,
everything. Why do you feel empty?
because you don't have everything. You're missing something. And it makes me feel so bad for him because, like, clearly, if anybody is to take that action, something is missing.
Yeah.
There is some form of relationship, whether that's with the world around you, with the people around you, or with yourself, that's missing. There's a hurt that hasn't been alleviated. No Face, I'm lonely, right? Like, and No Face can be lonely in a humongous crowded bathhouse. He still needs something, right? There's an illustrative element there in the real world of what the consequences can be and what can happen if we don't get these actual core needs met that line up with our identity, not just the wants. What do we actually need? Like, what do you need? Like relationship, like scratches?
欲しくない、いらない。私忙しいので失礼します。
The gold drops, and then everybody rushes towards her. And she's like swimming through a sea of people, going the opposite direction to everybody else.
Yeah.
And how much this is, we go back to the idea about if you watch this film with the sound off, what would you be able to get out of this? It's like part of growing up, part of remembering who you are means being willing to go against the crowd, going against what everybody else, what your culture, what your society, what the people around you, what your friends, what your parents are doing, being willing to go the other direction.
There is, as soon as Buddy gets out of the frame, thank you. There's an interesting contrast then with this idea of going against the flow, because I love how you see her going against the flow of all the people who are being driven by the consumerism, but that's contrasted with the way that the wind blew her towards something else.
Oh.
So there's like this natural flow that you need to be following.
Yeah.
And I would kind of interpret the wind being like, as part of her growing up, it's really important that she has this connection with the spirit world, with nature. Like, it's pushing her towards this experience that she has to go through, even though it's challenging.
Yeah.
But there are other types of flow that you have to resist. You have to push against and go against the current when other people and your whole society might be pushing through. And how do you resist that flow? You know who you are. Again, in this flow of people, the only person going the other direction is the only person that has her own name.
That's a great point.
みんなよく来たね。まあお座り。今お茶を入れるからね。
Zeniba's house is just mild. Like, it's beautiful.
It's the opposite of her sister.
Yeah,
but it's not
like,
ostentatious whatsoever.
Yeah, but the thing that really drew my attention to that was here when they're sitting down to eat. Like, that's a beautiful meal.
Yep.
There's a lot of food, but it's not too much.
Yeah.
It's just right.
Yeah.
It's like, this is bountiful, but not excessive.
Exactly. And it's cool then to see how No Face is responding to his environment.
Yeah.
Where he's like now just being very polite and like sipping his tea and having one piece of cake. And it's like, and I think there's a value then for if people are struggling with that sense of self before they've been able to achieve knowing who they are, like having those needs aligned with wants, like surround yourself with good people. That's probably one of the first things, is to get yourself into an environment that supports your process, which is maybe also why No Face sticks around with Zeniba afterwards.
Yeah, this is where he's supposed to be. This is where he's the healthiest.
Yeah, exactly.
さあ行きな。振り向かないで。
Haku tells her, don't look back.
Yeah.
Until you've gone through the tunnel. Part of, I think, what Miyazaki is saying is Chihiro started this movie looking backwards. She was focused on the past, what was happening before, where she had come from, even though she was in the middle of having to do something different. And I think there's something about where Haku says to her, not don't look back, but don't look back until you've gotten through the tunnel. Like, you're still in the middle of this process. Don't reflect on it until after you've gone through it. To me, that's like, you have somewhere else to be. You have somewhere else you need to go. So, and even here, right, where she like
wants to look back, but doesn't.
Yeah. And that, again, if you spend time on it, it's important. That's a very expensive cut of her turning her head for no reason.
Yeah.
It's interesting how now, after they've gotten out of the tunnel, now she has the opportunity to look back
Mm.
And it feels to me something like, if you have a task to do, be present with the task you have to do. But once you've gone through it, now this is your opportunity to look backwards, and you can. Again, goes back to that idea of when he gave her the food. Be present to where you are now, and now you can reflect. Yeah, and that hair tie is super interesting to me too, because what does Zeniba say to her when she has the hair tie? This will protect you.
Mm-hmm.
But where does she use the hair tie in the spirit world? She doesn't. There's nothing for it. And the fact that Miyazaki is spending so much time with the hair tie as like this primary piece, to me feels like this isn't going to protect you now for Yubaba's last test. This is going to protect you when you go back to the real world.
Yeah.
This is going to be the piece where, just like the card was her memories of what happened before,
That's
like
cool. Yeah.
the hair tie is, don't lose connection to everything that you've gained through this experience. This is your little symbolic element of, here's all the stuff you did, here's all the growing that you had to do. And all those same tools and skills that you've developed through this growing up process, these are going to serve you going forward.
Yeah.
So here's a little representation of, don't forget it. Hang on to those things of not just who you inherently are, but kind of who you have made yourself to be.
The first part was don't forget who you are. Yeah. And now it's don't forget how you've grown.
Yeah. There's a piece to at the very end here, again, going back to the difference between the Japanese and the English. Did you notice in the original, it is 100% silent. She has that moment. She looks back, her parents call her out, and she's like, okay, time to go. And the rest of it rides off in silence.
Oh, it is silent. And the last thing is her name. Like, her name is the last thing that's spoken in the entire movie.
And so there's a tone to that, right? And then obviously,
why did they put those two lines in the English one where it's like
a new home and a new school? It is a bit scary.
I think I can handle it.
I mean, is 100% aligned with the plot and the theme. So the translators know what they're talking about when it comes to the themes. It does just feel a little bit spoon-fed.
Oh gosh. Does that say something about the level of capability of Western versus Eastern audiences?
Or the perception of Western creators about their audience versus the perception of Eastern creators about their audience. And that might not be a West versus East thing either. That might just be like Miyazaki, as kind of like you've talked about in the past, like an auteur.
Yeah.
Versus Disney is kind of like a corporate production.
Oh gosh. I think unfortunately you're correct. I don't want to call Studio Ghibli small, but they are far more indie than Disney. Miyazaki is an auteur, like somebody who the film is his film, despite the fact that so many people worked on it.
Yeah.
He's not the only one working on it, but it's his vision as opposed to a corporate direction based on market and data and like
the natural flow of an idea versus the consumptive flow of an idea.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's part of it. But it also is something that I think I was thinking about when we talked about the concept of Ma. This idea about, is that something that is incorporated in a Miyazaki film, in a Japanese film? Maybe that's something that's more present in Eastern films because you have a word for this. Oh no. That's the fire alarm.
Oh well.
So you might notice we're wearing different clothes.
Yeah.
Sadly, we had to come back another day and finish up this recording. Everything's okay. The house didn't burn down. We're fine.
But if you want to see the behind the scenes of that, you can check out our Patreon to see the video we recorded haphazardly by the river in the snow.
We filmed an alternate ending just in case we weren't going to be able to come back in here. But what I was saying was that I wonder if part of the idea that even the idea, the concept of Ma is in a Miyazaki film, is in Japanese films in general, is partly because that you have that word in your language to begin with.
Like you actually have a label for that concept.
So the concept exists to you.
Yeah.
You know that it exists because you actually have a word for it. And so you're able to much more easily incorporate it into your film. And Japanese audiences understand that because they know the word for that thing. And so how much does your, not even, or is it like Western audiences versus Eastern audiences, smarter or dumber or better or worse at catching symbolism? How much is it that your language, your culture just prepares you to engage with films differently because you have a different culture, because you have a different language?
Yeah, man, you cannot get me started on this because like that concept is one of my favorite things in psychology. It's the idea of like the the concept of having a word for an emotion or experience in one language, but you don't in another language. Something I talk to my clients about a lot is like, you have to be able to name and articulate your emotional experience in order to be able to navigate it and process it. It makes tons of sense to me that if there isn't in English this kind of, like in Japanese, this elegant word to describe, and I say elegant because it's like a lot of depth with very little complexity. Ma is a one syllable word that describes this really deep emotional experience of like the space to breathe between things happening that you kind of have this internal sense of. You need to have a word for the things that you want to describe. And that's why the language and the specificity, or what we'll sometimes call in psychology, the granularity of your language, especially when it comes to your emotions, is so valuable.
You know, what's wild is that hearing you talk about just even the way that your language is set up dictates your experience. That makes me realize that there's another film that we desperately need to watch. And if you guys know what that film is, write it down in the comments. I want to see if anybody is thinking along the same path that I am. We do need to start to wrap things up because, my goodness, this is already going to be a long episode as it is. But you guys can also check out the extended cut in our Patreon at the link in the description below. If you guys have any other Studio Ghibli films or Hayao Miyazaki films that you really, really want us to look at, I watched Howl's Moving Castle the other day. I desperately want to re-review Princess Mononoke.
Have you ever seen Nazca in the Valley of the Wind?
No, I haven't yet.
That's super good.
You know what? Oh, so yeah, let us know what your favorite Hayao Miyazaki film is, and we'll see if we can make it another next film we watch in the next little while here.
Or leave us a comment about any of the symbolism pieces that you guys think we may have missed, overlooked, because we're talking about subjective perspectives. If you had a different take on what Miyazaki's intent with this film was, throw it in the comments. We want to see and get the breadth of people's perspectives, not necessarily what's right or wrong.
Yeah, definitely let us know. Don't let the conversation end here. Keep it going in the comments. But guys, that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. We can't wait to see you in the next video.
Take care.